festival. You are listening to SGFR, podcast radio for the festival. Now broadcasting highlights and top picks, your tasty, tantalizing tease for this coming year.
There were some times where the rainbow had gone behind a small crowd and Laura tried to kill people.
I think I'm very tempted to leave that in as the opening line for this episode. Hello to everyone. Thank you for tuning in, especially you, Jan. You're our best listener. We love you. And do you want to explain that? What's this about rainbows and murder and stabbing? And
I'm just saying I was full of sunshines and rainbows, and James has an alternative take.
Well, James is on an alternative take. That's why he's got the gig.
It's only just because of my eyes and the things I see and witness. Empirical
evidence.
Yeah,
Oh, well, if you're going to go with evidence,
I don't think this should be an evidence-led kind of podcasty type thing.
This has never been an evidence-led. It is a joy to have you all here, and in the room, in the studio with us are Ewan. Of course, normal host, myself, J-Dog, otherwise known as James Venison, and Laura. Laura's on the move today, so she might drop in and out as she goes into tunnels and over hills, be warned. And our wonderful guests are Joe, who did Traitors, and he's going to give us a wonderful catch-up on that. And in the next episode, we'll also be chatting to Ewan, and a little later on, we'll get Len in to talk about Icarus. So, how is everybody? All speak at once, because it's good radio.
Yeah, good, thank you.
We're all very good, thank you.
Joe, thank you very much for joining us here on a bright early morning. How are you, sir?
Yeah, good, thank you. Had my first 2 days back at work. Didn't get much done, unsurprisingly, because it's 2 days before a weekend. But yeah, good Christmas, nice holiday. And the Traitors started 2 days ago. Series 3.
Oh, yes, of course. Isn't there a twist this season?
They've changed the end game, which I can go into detail about if you really want me to. But they've actually, interestingly, when I run the Traitors, I add information to the game because I don't have enough. What they've done is actually remove some information from the game.
Oh. So more in the dark.
Yeah. So in basically, I think when they get down to final 5, when you vote people off, you will no longer learn whether they were traitor or faithful.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that upping the stakes, but that won't work for us, though.
No, that's not a change I'm going to bring in.
Joe, please, for those few people who do not know what Traitors is and its relationship with Strange Games Festival and the coming Strange Games Compound, what is Traitors?
And also, Joe, it's okay. I am one of the aforementioned people who doesn't know anything about Traitors beyond watching one episode and going, oh, yeah, right. So I will be asking a lot of questions.
No worries, that's all good. I will be giving exhaustive answers, I think. Yeah, so Traitors is basically a werewolf mafia type game where you have a small group of evil people who know who each other are and a large group of good people who have no idea what's going on. They have a sort of day-night cycle, so overnight the traitors will murder someone, and then during the day they will do tasks, and then they will have a banishment, or I call them round tables actually, and that's where you can essentially execute, by majority vote you will execute someone or banish someone, and they get removed from the game. And when they get removed from the game, you find out what alignment they are, and eventually you will end up with one traitor or a number of people left. They can vote to stop the game when it hits final 5. So if they believe they've got rid of all the traitors, the faithful can vote to end the game, and if any traitors make it to the end game, they win. In the TV show, obviously there's a big prize. It's like 100 grand or something. In the game that I run, it's just the pride of knowing that you won the game. And the relationship with Strange Games is just that 2 years ago I asked Simon if I could run a version of it, because I quite like running versions of TV shows I like. So I've done a few like Taskmaster days. I've done Would I Lie to You? I'm very interested in trying to do some kind of Survivor or jet lag thing, but I think that's essentially impossible. So Traitors is like a very possible, because it's just werewolf. I thought it worked very well, and I liked the sort of USP of it running over 3 days, which is the main thing. Because if I was just going to run a game of the Traitors, people are already playing werewolf, they're already playing Mafia, and most of all they're already playing Blood on the Clock Tower. No one would really be that interested. But the idea that you start playing it on Friday and finish playing it on Sunday is sort of what I thought would be interesting about it. and people seem to enjoy it. So so I'm running it. I'm going to run a stripped down version at the camp out because everything in the camp out is smaller than the main festival. So that'll probably just be a 12-person version. The tasks probably won't be as interesting, and then I'll do a proper big version. And we're actually upgrading to the main stage this year. So almost all the sessions will be on the main stage. So we started off at a small campfire. Then we moved to the main campfire and had an audience. And so next year we're going to have hopefully a bigger audience and slightly more interesting shows. And I'm going to try and bring the audience into the experience somehow. We'll work on that throughout the year.
An audience.
Can I go back to some of the very first things you said, because I do have questions. So Traitors is a TV show, yes?
Yes.
Right, good. Just wanted to establish that. And you said people are murdered in that. Is that just like fancy speak, or are there actual deaths?
Just fancy speak, yeah. I'm sure in 10, 15 years' time that'll change.
Claudia will, with her bare hands, rip them apart.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Now, something I've always wondered is, what is the point of the tasks? Like, do you get like immunity from something, or like are the traitors trying to like make the tasks fail, or like what is the point of them?
So for the show, I believe the point of the tasks is because they want the episodes to be an hour long. And they and because like shows that exist like The Mole and Survivor and have existed for ages follow a pattern of, in the middle of the episode they will have an obstacle course type task type thing. The way they explain it in the show is that they're doing tasks to build up the prize fund.
Right.
But the prize fund is always going to end up being around the same amount of money anyway. And I think towards the end they generally let them sort of win all the stuff.
And the traitors want to win that as well.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So they're all.
So everyone helps, and so it doesn't. It's not like a way to work out who is a traitor.
No, and that is something people have asked for a lot from the show, and they have actually introduced it a little bit this series. So I've only watched the first 2 episodes, but they do a task where if the group succeed in the task, they can prevent there being a murder that night. So the traitors are therefore incentivized to make the task fail. But the problem is, when you've got 3 people out of 20 trying to make the task fail, there's actually no incentive to actually try and make the task fail, because firstly, you'll stick out like a sore thumb. And secondly, it's much better to let one of the other 20 people make a mistake and then go, I think they might be a traitor.
And I guess it's impossible as well, yeah.
Yeah, you would just have to do way too much, which is one of the reasons why I thought they shouldn't bring something like that in. The show, after the first season, because I think it was the most complained about aspect of the show, because it is the weakest one. When I watch a season I'm not super committed to, like the Australian ones, I will just fast forward the task sometimes, because you can get through the series a lot quicker, and then they genuinely aren't that important. But they said that it was important for like the players' mental health, because they get to do something where they all work together, and it's actually not as important who's trying to kill who. But I think that is just a line they came up with
because they wanted it to be an hour long.
Yeah, but I think essentially, yeah.
In your version, though,
yes,
are the tasks just fun, or is there like a purpose behind them?
Yeah, so in my version, I would say actually in the Australian version they sometimes do tasks where you get immunity, and sometimes the tasks are related to immunity, but not always. But in my version, there is essentially always a way for the traitors to gain extra murders, and there's always a way for the faithful to gain extra information.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah, as I recall, Joe set it up so that they had to take a selfie with Simon one year. Was that right?
Yeah, so the first year you had to, I'm not going to be able to remember the exact wording, but everyone had to take a selfie with Simon. And at the same time, that's it. At the same time, the traitors, if all the traitors managed to take a picture of the same faithful, that faithful would get murdered.
Oh, cool.
So both types of players had a reason to come up and show me photos on the phone. So the first thing, it's a bit like roles in Blood on the Clock Tower. They have to talk to the storyteller. If you're going to put one of them in, you have to put more than one of them in, because otherwise it becomes very obvious. So I have to if I'm going to have traitors coming up to me and showing me pictures, the thing the faithfuls have to do also has to involve coming up to me and showing me pictures.
Did you tell Simon that he was going to do this?
No, no. So he thought he was just very popular all of a sudden. And then this year, the Saturday task, so I put posters up around the site advertising because we were going to have the audience advertising when the round tables were going to be.
Yeah.
And the Saturday task was that each poster had a number on the back of it, and they had to go and collect a poster each and bring it to me, and that number would be tied to an individual task they were given. And one of those tasks was once again to take a selfie with Simon.
I like the implication that Simon was like, "I'm finally popular after all these years. It's finally worked."
That's so
Yeah, I
cool.
think it built him up and then tore him down, unfortunately.
It coincided, I think, with the quest givers also giving people that quest. I don't know if you'd communicated with them, but it was coming from multiple directions, so that's
No.
hilarious.
Really? Is this a new festival game? Is this a new Strange Games activity that we set Simon up to boost his ego, and then suddenly, on a special note, everyone turns around and say, "Oh no, just kidding."
I think
that is so cruel.
I think more like events at Strange Games should just be based around pranking Simon.
No, he'll leave us.
Just like lovely, harmless ones, not like destroy his life ones.
Can we can we talk about the audience, because this is new, and will you be trying it out at the camp out? What is the relationship? How are you going to include the audience and make it entertaining and exciting for them without seriously overburdening yourself?
Yeah.
For example,
sorry.
are you going to engage J-Dog, James Benison, in as the compare for those events to generally kind of make it flow smoothly, more smoothly?
So the first year,
you can ignore the James question there. I'm not hunting for gigs. Don't worry. But
well, I'm always up for help, but it's hard to. It ends up always being so much to do that it's actually quite hard to find the time to brief someone on what they need to actually help with. So the first year, Simon was pushing for an audience, and I was like, well, I don't even know if it's going to actually be that interesting to play, let alone that interesting to watch. So I was quite resistant, and he was really up for it. So the compromise I found was on the Sunday, I got like 6 or 7 people I knew to come along and watch the final session.
Yeah.
With the caveat that if at any point it got boring, they should not only can they leave, but they should leave, because I want to know whether it's interesting or not. And they all stayed to the end. And so I was like, okay, maybe we'll do it with an audience at all the round tables next time.
Yeah.
And I think it got about 20, 30 people, which, considering they don't have as much information, one of the problems we have is that the audience for the TV show obviously has all the information. They know who the traitors are, they know all the private conversations. But when you turn up to a banishment of a game, you can't possibly be following that closely. You don't know who the traitors actually are, so you don't know what the conversation, you don't know which bits are lies and which bits are the truth, and you don't know who's sort of allying in the background. So I wasn't sure how interesting it would be, but people were coming up to me saying they enjoyed it. And obviously the friends of the people who are playing will come along and watch it. So just by that, if everyone has 2 or 3 people there at the festival with, then you're going to get a certain amount of people every time. And then I would hope that most of the ex-players the people who've been banished and murdered, would come back and watch the conclusion as well, which generally they do. And I try and give them a role. If there's a tie, basically they end up voting to break the tie. And then in the final session I did, about halfway through, include a way to try and reveal the traitors to the audience.
Dangerous though.
Yeah. So I said beforehand, like, if you're the sort of person who will gasp or will give it away through your reactions, please close your eyes so you still don't actually know. And I'm not sure if there's a bigger audience next year it's on the stage. I'm not sure if I could even do that, but we'll see. We'll work out a way to. I want to include, if there's going to be an audience there, I want to include them as much as possible, but it's quite difficult. It's a hard line.
It is, isn't it? What pops into my head as you tell us about it is how to keep everyone up to date. And sometimes when I watch all these kind of binge these series, they do a kind of intro last time on the episode, and they do a little kind of story synopsis. Is that something you might do to kind of at the beginning?
Yeah, so at the start of the round tables, I do try and sum up what happened in the day, but it's like very brief, and you can't really ask the players to sum up who they're talking to and what they've been talking about, because then that's suddenly in front of everyone. So yeah, there's not really a great way to do it, because it's happening at the time that they're watching it. It's live, whereas in the TV show it's 6 months ago or whatever.
That's true, and they've had 6 months worth of editing in order to kind of sharpen it up. And no pressure, but let's nominate James to edit for you. I mean,
thanks Andy for trying to get me a job, by the way.
Well, I have faith in you. You're a seriously capable chap. So
thank you. Yeah, this is more intense than the job centre.
Yes, we're slightly off topic. Joe, going back to Traitors, what's the key changes that you'll be introducing, having run the thing for a couple of years now?
I think so. I mean, I change the task up every time. Mechanics wise, I think I was fairly happy with how it went last year. I bring in stuff from other reality shows in general. It's how I change the game. So I watch a lot of a show called Survivor,
Yeah.
and they have like immunity idols. They have lots of advantages, and I generally bring in all their successful advantages into the Traitors. There's not much, I think, because the thing is, if I tinker with it too much, it would essentially no longer be the Traitors. I mean, even what I've done is probably taking it almost too far away from being able to call it the Traitors. But if I change it too much, I would have to just start calling it something else, I think.
Yeah, true.
The Betrayers.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the mechanics, if we may, so that people know, especially those who are coming to the camp out, and of course those who are coming back to the festival. There is, for example, a Discord channel that you dedicate to the whole thing. What other things do people need to know, both as potential participants and also as audience members?
For participants, what they have to know is that I do commit to the idea that it's a TV show.
Yes.
So I do a questionnaire before they start. The first session is a sort of getting to know each other. It borders on organized fun without hopefully straying into the worst aspects of that.
Yeah.
And then I use that information because I need to decide who the Traitors are. Because in most games, it's randomly chosen in Blood and the Clock Tower or Mafia or whatever. You pull things out of a bag and that tells you what role you are. But the TV show, the idea is obviously to try and create as interesting a team of traitors and faithful as possible. So I try and adhere to that. So because of that, I can't just get 12 random people turn up and start playing.
Yeah.
So I need to know as much about them as possible.
Yes.
Which is also quite difficult. I mean, this year it was actually quite easy because about 6 of the people playing I already knew quite well, just coincidentally.
Yes.
So that helped. That took a lot of the pressure off because I already knew how they play that kind of game. So I try and do a very short sort of few questions over Discord. And then on the first night, I actually managed to rope some people in to help interview them. Well, we also played. So we played a game called, played my own version of Two Truths and a Lie. It was called One Lie, Two Lies, and then Three More Lies. And so they had to group up in teams of 3, and then I would deal a card randomly that said 1, 2, or 3, and then they would have to each present 3 facts to the rest of the group, and then the group would have to vote on who had told 1 lie out of the 3, who had told 2 lies out of the 3, and whose were all 3 lies. And they could ask questions and stuff.
Right.
The idea behind that is basically that I want everyone to have seen everyone tell a lie before the game starts.
Yeah, I would be terrible at this game because I cannot lie. So, and I think that's inspired. That's really excellent.
No, don't fall for this joke. What he just said then was a lie.
Was actually a lie, yeah,
Yeah.
classic. Because you're trying to get on next season, aren't you?
What?
Yeah.
No.
So, in terms of like signing up, Joe, do people they sign up through the Discord server?
So weirdly, the camp out will now work that way because for the camp out, we're not doing proper sign-ups in the same way the big festival does.
Yeah.
So for the camp out, I'll just do it over Discord, which is actually going to be very nice for me because otherwise I have to try and get people to sign up through the website and then contact them and ask them to join the Discord channel. Whereas if I do the sign up on Discord, it will be a lot easier to get them into the Discord channel and get them to reply to messages that, sometimes you get people who actually aren't even on Discord.
Yeah.
So if that actually works, I would be, it's a difficult one because I would be tempted to do it again for the main festival, but also I don't want to exclude the people who aren't already on Discord from signing up.
Yeah.
But it also is annoying when you're like, the day before the game starts and you are like, I think sometimes people think that questionnaire thing is just sort of a bit of a laugh, but it is actually quite important for how the game is going to run, and you have to sorry.
I was just going to say, like, with the questionnaire and they're getting to know people, are there specific traits you look for in a traitor, or is this a question I shouldn't ask because then it will be easier
No. I think it's actually
for the faithful to work it out.
The first thing is that most people, one of the main questions I ask is how much do you want to be a traitor? Generally, so the first year I really wanted to make someone who didn't want to be a traitor, but then the problem is when you ask them like, are you any good at lying? And like Andy, they say no. You don't want someone who literally isn't gonna, because I much prefer playing evil in these games. So in my view, everyone who was signing up to play the Traitors was signing up to be a traitor.
Yeah.
But when you actually talk to people, a lot of them are like, no, I actually want to play as a faithful. And generally I will respect that. But I also think it's quite funny to put someone who really doesn't want to be a traitor as a traitor.
I totally agree. I think, but you need to find like the right person for that. Like, I think I probably would make a good traitor because I am quite good at lying, I think, but I would get so stressed like immediately.
Because
like from the beginning.
It is 3 days. And if you are playing with your friends, which, you know, a lot of the signups we had last year and this year were, you know, pairs or trios of people.
Yeah.
You are spending a lot of the festival with people that you are actually constantly lying to. And so one of the traitors this year, Sam, who I wasn't going to initially make a traitor, but I had some friends conduct the interviews for me, and then we sort of essentially all picked a traitor each. Or we had like our top 3, and we picked a section of those. And David, who helped me do the interviews, had asked the question. It was something like, who out of the group do you already trust the most? And five people said Sam. So he said, like, why not make the most trusted person a traitor? And so that was someone who didn't actually want to be a traitor that much, but we felt they would do well at it.
Yeah.
And he throughout the festival was just saying to me, "This is unbelievably stressful."
Yeah.
I'm just, and it wasn't helped that one of the other traitors accidentally kept telling everyone. So the way that the traitors work is that we have a separate Discord private messaging service for the traitors, which is how they know who each other are and how they
oh no,
how they choose who gets murdered and how they talk about strategy for the tasks in the day and stuff. And Harry, who I think genuinely is one of the people that I think should go on the show. I think he'd just be brilliant at it. We made him a traitor because I thought it'd be good fun to watch. And also this year I was having 4 instead of 3, so I felt there could be sort of like a traitor that I didn't mind, sort of who maybe would give it away quickly.
Yeah.
And him and Sam were in the same friend group, and they were sat around playing a game with some of the other players.
Yeah.
Who were not traitors, and that was when I set the private messaging group up for the traitors. And Harry kept saying out loud, "Why am I in this traitors group? What's going on?" And so I was watching. I set this traitors group up, and instantly I was watching Sam messaging on it saying, "Harry, please stop talking about this group."
Oh, it looks and sounds.
And I was just thinking, what is going on? We also had a player who was faithful this year, who immediately, and I mean pretty much immediately after the traitor selection took place, which I did in person this year, which worked much better, which I was happy with, immediately sent out a message to everyone saying, "I am a traitor. If you want someone to get killed, tell me and I'll murder them."
Well, that's one way of playing the game, I guess.
And that person made it to the final 3, so it worked.
It's brilliant.
What was their thinking?
I think the thinking is that, like, if I was a traitor, there is absolutely no way I would have actually said that. And if and from the traitor's point of view, if you are one of the traitors, there's no way you're going to murder the guy who's just claimed they're a traitor because they're going to be untrustworthy.
True. Well, that's amazing, Joe. I think that's fabulous, and I look forward to the traitors happening both at the camp out and the festival. I encourage anyone and everyone who's listening, who's also going to be there, to come join the audience if you're not in the game.
Yeah, the other interesting thing this year is for the first time I'm going to run it somewhere that isn't Strange Games.
Tell us more.
So I'm going to a Blood on the Clock Tower fest thing called Bloodfest in Milton Keynes in May. And there's this, like, basically if you run something as a full-on Blood on the Clock Tower festival, you have to be affiliated with the company and you have to send them some of your profits, which is fair enough because it's their game. So to get around that, you have to run something as a social deduction festival, which means you have to have other games. So Bloodfest, while obviously from the title is very Blood on the Clock Tower themed, it's not a full-on Blood on the Clock Tower festival. So I figured they were probably looking for other games to run, so I just messaged and asked if I could run Traitors. And I think quite a few Blood on the Clock Tower people were talking about it this year, so I think they'd heard about it anyway. So so I'm going to run a version in a hotel, which will be interesting.
Cool. Hone the skills and also help them out, and everyone benefits.
Yeah, exactly.
If anyone wants to get involved in that, where will they find out about it?
So Bloodfest, I believe, is sold out, and there's already quite a long waiting list. So if you're already going, that will just be Discord sign up again, I think.
Gotcha.
And and then I'm very much hoping that next year at Strange Games, I can do a returning players version of the Traitors, where everyone who plays has played before. Yes, because those are my favourite series of Survivor, where they just have lots of returning players.
Contest of Champions.
Because you get people who are a bit more, and also there's a whole meta game of like someone who was a traitor before. Would they be a traitor again?
Nice.
Would I put someone in a traitor a second time? And it just adds another layer.
Stay in touch on that, and we'll interview some of them for the podcast. Maybe after you've had that sort of session, I think it'd be fascinating to have the point of view of survivors talking on telling everyone about their experience. Right, I'm afraid I need to wrap this little bit up.
Yeah, no worries. I told you I'd give exhaustive replies.
But that's amazing, Joe. Oh, it's great. We'll have you back on the show some other time, Joe, to tell us even more.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Joe. As someone who's never really cared about Traitors, you actually may be interested.
Yeah, you should play. You should play.
Yeah, I think you should.
I would be so full of anxiety the whole weekend. and I'm full of anxiety that whole weekend anyway.
You've been listening to SGFR, the podcast radio channel for the Strange Games Festival. This season's hosts have been James, Laura, Andy and Craig. And if you'd like to come on the show, message us on the festival radio channel on the Strange Games Festival Discord server.